Okay, so here's the new situation for us. We've been doing division for a while now, since third grade for most of us. Um, and in our last week's work, we looked at, well, what happens when the group size, in other words, the divisor, has a decimal number, but the dividend, what we are dividing, does not. And we learned a strategy. Here's the good news. When both the divisor and the dividend are decimal numbers, the strategy we learned last week, still the strategy. Yeah. Still, what we really want to look at and say is, hey, you, divisor, we need you to be a whole number. But if we do something to the divisor to find a whole number, we have to do the same thing to the dividend. Kind of like making equivalent fractions with the numerator and the denominator. So I've got 7/100ths here in the divisor, and I just want it to be 7. Well, what would I have to do? I'd have to make it 100 times bigger. 100 times bigger means that 7 is going to be now in the ones place. 7/10 times 100 equals 7. Now, if I'm doing that to the divisor, must do the same to the dividend. So my 4 2/10 times 100 also means my numbers are going to jump 2 places to the left, or if you want to think about it totally incorrectly, my decimal is going to move 2 places to the right. So 4 2/10 times 100, 420. If I solve this problem right here, 420 divided by 7, then the answer is going to be the same as it would be if I had 4 2/10 and I were trying to figure out how many groups of 7/100ths it would have. Now, if I can get to the blue equivalent equation, I guess we could call it, this is some 4th grade sweetness right here. So let's go ahead and break that down. 7 doesn't go into 4. I like to use that little X. That is just me. Doesn't have to be you. So I've got to go digit by digit. 7, we can make groups of 7 out of 42, however. In fact, there's a math fact for that. 7 times 6 is 42. And that means I've grouped all of that business. And this is where some of us sometimes get a little confused. You might say, oh, well, I can bring down the 0, but lady, there's nothing left, so I'm done. It can't be done. Because 6 groups of 7 isn't 420. Remember, there's got to be something in the ones place. We got to have something there. Well, the something we're going to have there is 0. Now, 7 groups of 60 is 420. And it turns out 7/100ths of a group of 60 is 4 2/10. So 60 is our quotient. And the strategy, same strategy as last week. Let's try another one. This one looks like problem 4. This time, again, we've got a hundredths divisor. And when there's a decimal in the dividend as well. So let's see if we can multiply that out. So I want 24/100ths to be a whole number, 24. What would I have to do? I'd have to multiply that by 100, which means those two numbers times 10 times 10 are going to scooch to the left, and so that decimal is now not needed. If I do this to the divisor, I must do the same to the dividend. I must multiply by 100. And in which case, our digits are going to jump 2 places to the left, or again, if you want to think of it incorrectly, the decimal will move 2 places to the right. Decimal doesn't really move. It's always between the ones place and the 10th place, but there you go. Boop, boop. So the problem in blue is an equivalent problem in terms of it will have the same quotient as our original problem. So we can get the answer that we need. And how do we do it? Well, we work it the way that we have been working problems like this here in 5th grade, because we've got this 24, that's kind of on the I don't know my 24s. So remember, we use estimating, we use rounding and estimating here. I'm going to use 20 as a thinking number because I can skip count by 20s. In fact, over here, I'm just going to make myself a little estimation chart that helps me think about and get close to the answers I'm going to need. Now, I want to remember, though, that when I actually do the multiplication, 24 is the number I've got to use. So I'm just going to get a couple problems started so that I don't accidentally use 20 when I'm making my final calculations. How many groups? And I think I'm ready. Oh, no, I'm not. Oh, if there's a decimal here in the dividend, I want to bring that up on the quotient line. And now I really don't have to think about it for a while. Now I'm ready to do some real division. How many groups of 24 can I make out of 2? None. How about 20? None. I know our estimation number is 20, but our real number is 24, and so no dice. But 206 I can do. The question is how many groups? Well, let's do a little estimating. I'm going to use my thinking number and think, well, how close can 20 get to 206? And the truth is, 20 can get there more, it looks like 10 times. So I'm going to try 9 because it's not going to be 10. I need a single digit here. 9 times 4 is 36. Carry the 3. 9 times 2 is 18, 19, 20, 21. 24. 9 groups of 24, too much. So what do? Try 8 groups. 8 times 4 is 32. Carry the 3. 8 times 2 is 16, 17, 18, 19. Yep, 192 will get me there. So I can make 8 groups of 24, which means that I have grouped up 192 out of that 206. 6 take away 2 is 4. 20 take away 19 is 1. I've got 14 left over. I can't make a group out of that, and I'm ready to bring down my next digit. If you know how to do this part, you should do it without me and then watch to check. Because if you just watch me, you probably won't learn very much. But if you try it yourself and then watch me for feedback, you have a chance to learn something. That's how learning works. All right, 144. Well, I'm going to use my thinking number 20, and I'm going to use my estimation chart. And I see here 7 groups of 20 is 144, but I remember before that 9 was a little too much because 24 is a little bit more than 20. I think I'm going to try it, but I think it's going to be 6. 7 times 4 is 28. Carry the 2. 7 times 2 is 14, 15, 16. Yep. We've got to go down one more group. 6 times 4 is 24. Carry the 2. 6 times 2 is 12, 13, 14. Perfectamundo. 6 groups of 24 takes care of everything that was left in my number. And that means I can have 8 and 6/10 groups of 24 to get to 206 and 4/10. But that also means that 8.6 groups of 2400ths will get me to 2 and 64,000. I'm telling you, for real. Check it with a calculator. The calculator will show you. All right, let's look at one of these problems in context. And again, you might stop here, try as far as you can go on your own, and then come back into the video. Just watching me and saying, I watched the video, but I don't get it. Well, the reason you don't get it is because you didn't do anything. You have to do stuff to learn. You really do. I didn't make it up. It's a true fact. All right. So let's take a look here. We've got a beekeeper who collected 7 and 6/10 liters of honey, and she's going to pour it into bottles that each hold 95 hundredths of a liter. Not quite 1 liter. Okay. How many bottles will she fill? Well, to figure that out, I've got to figure out how many groups of 95 hundredths of a liter I can get out of 7 and 6/10. And that's fine. I didn't mean to put that line there. All right. Okay, So I've got decimal numbers in the divisor and the dividend. I do not want a decimal in the divisor. Too confusing. So I'm going to multiply it out. I see I need the decimal to be over here so that I've got 95 instead of 95 hundredths. Well, if it's going to move two places, if the number is going to move two places, get 100 times greater, that means I multiply it by 100. And ta-da, there's the divisor I need. But I have to do the same to the dividend. It's an equivalency issue. If I don't make the dividend 100 times bigger, then I am going to get the 100% wrong problem here. So how do I do that? Okay, 7 and 6 times 100. This number gets 10, 20 times, 100 times bigger. And that leaves me with 760. Okay, now it's time to do some of that sweet 5th grade double-digit divisor division. All right, so I don't know my 95s, but if I round 95 to a thinking number I do know, I'm going to make it 100. And 100 is quite a bit more than 95 in terms of rounding and estimating, but it'll help me. And of course, I can make an estimation chart, although for this one I might really not need it because I think we all know how to skip count by hundreds and think about that. So I'll just stop at 700 for now. All right, let's get this party started. I know I can't make any groups of 95 out of 7, digit by digit. Can't make any groups of 95 out of 76, but I can out of 760. And if I use my thinking number of 100, I could probably get 7, maybe 8 groups of 95. Oh man, I really want to try 8. I always tend to try the higher number that I'm estimating first, because if it's too much, then I know for sure it does not work. 8 times 5 is 40, carry the 4. 8 times 9 is 72, 73, 74, 75, 76. Aha! I did not know this was going to happen because maybe I wasn't paying close attention, but it turns out, yep, going a little bit higher because our actual number of 95 is a little bit lower. Sweet. Exactly 8 groups of 95 is 760. No remainder. I don't have to go any further with this at all. So how many bottles can the beekeeper fill? She can fill exactly 8. She's not even going to have any leftover honey, which I find kind of mathematically unlikely. But it's the situation they gave us. So if I were answering this, then on the answer line, I would for sure make sure to include the context by making a label that shows I know what this is 8 of. It's not 8 of beekeepers. It's not 8 liters. It's 8 bottles of honey. So these are just a few problems to try, and they're similar to the other problems on the assignment and other problems you might run into. You give it a shot. You can come back and re-watch. That is a great strategy. You can come back and you can pause as you work through your problems, and you can use a calculator to check your work. If you use a calculator just to get the answer and you write that down, you've learned nothing and you're really wasting your time. Let me know if you have any further questions about the specific problems on the homework or about this process of division, because I'm happy to meet with you individually or to follow up with additional tutorials. All right, you got this. You got this. Whoever does the work gets the benefit.